Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for this day. You give us, Lord, the breath of life you put in us, Father. I ask you, Lord, to touch our mind with the ideals and the knowledge we need. Touch our words that come out of our mouth, Lord. And we give you the honor and we give you the glory for everything you've given us. In Jesus' precious name we pray.
Amen. At this time, call and order the Board of Commissioners Budget Work Session, April 18th, 2023, at 3 p.m. Gunner, come lead us in our pledge.
Face the colors. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. And Philip's on his way, so. But we can get started. The items for discussion today are the 2023-2024 budget. I think Kevin's given us all a kind of a synopsis or a packet of this budget. So, Kevin, you want to kind of walk us through what you gave us?
I can. So we'll just start with the small stuff here. The first is just the budget highlights, and we'll go over those in just a minute. And the second one is kind of where all the money is going, which is just a little graphic I did for you, pie chart. And then after the following three are done by the school system, these. And I just reached out to them asking specifically about impact aid funding and where exactly did that go to, because that was one of the things that at the meeting we really didn't know. And so the next three are some of those. The first one is that, and I think I also asked for the salaries for the people that they were wanting us to give increases to. So that's kind of that. And then, let's see, the special projects teams were the third one, which that money comes out of Article 46, sales tax. So that's the money being utilized for that. And that's that $197,000 figure that asked for that one. And we'll just start with this first page if you want to. So the larger document basically is the budget. It's got the ordinance on the front, then it's got all of the different departments behind it. Inside the budget highlights of all of that is there were some increases for operations, just minimal. We did add the ARPA bonus money into it, which we normally have done sporadically through the year when it comes up to that bonus section, but I went ahead and just added it for the entire year. Also added the ARPA funding for EMS equipment because we have some latency in some of our vehicles that are coming in, so it won't be until September that we get both those new ambulances that we had already purchased last year. The COLA did have it in there. Did not have an opportunity to put in what they asked for. Basically, we did half of what they asked for, which is $1 per hour per employee. We allocated $170,000 from the settlement interest money for one vehicle and capital for the recreation. And when we get to the recreation department number, I'll go through exactly what that is. Allocated funding for this year's and for project latency, meaning projects that are supposed to happen this year, going to be happening next year, at 2.663. The reason I say that is because the budget is larger than last year, but there's reasons why. One is that number there, plus the ARPA funding, which normally we don't budget at the first of the year, we budget throughout the year. So that's the reason it's going to jump up, or it's going to seem like a lot more, but it's really not a lot more. It's just we're transitioning, okay? And then I also did include just $40,000 for the schools, which brings them up to $1 million on current expense. Did include everything that they wanted in their Article 46, which that's what it was supposed to be used for construction and maintenance. but did not take out the funding for the resource officers. So we are still going to be charging $130,000 to them for resource officers that they also already get back from a grant through the state. So did include that. The parts that I did not include, which is in red, which is the additional $1 per hour per employee, did not include that. Did not include the school request for an additional $804,000, so that did not get included. Did not include the fire and rescue staff / maintenance program, which is $600,000. The only options you have, you know, and I've kind of laid out some just suggestions, options. You know, increased fees, inspection fees, environmental health fees, et cetera. You know, that could bring in $50,000 estimated. Create a public service fee, which is 0.33 cents or 0.033 cents per 100, or 3.3 cents per 100. Increase tax rate for educational expense of 0.0446 or 4.46 cents. Tax rate for employee retention incentive, which is the other part of the COLA, which is 0.2 cents if you wanted to do that. The other option would be place fire tax on ballot for next May if requests are made by communities per statute. There is a statute that you have to do. You have to go through to put a fire tax on the ballot, so we'd have to go through that process and give the people the opportunity to vote for a fire tax. And then also look at number 6, ask school to decrease the amount of requests to reflect the amount received from impact aid. This kind of goes along with that, those last 3 sheets. In addition to that, look at ways throughout this next year, working with the school to see where their gaps are specifically, and kind of work through that. Not saying that there don't need to be a tax increase for that purpose, but just maybe this year looking at going through that process to determine if there's other methods that we can go after, state funding or grant funding or whatever, to fill those gaps. So that's basically the budget highlights. And we can go through, like I say, the majority of it is very similar to this year's budget from the standpoint of expenses. We did have an increase in our retirement amount. We were paying 12.32, now we're paying 12.91%. And I think it's like 13.45% for law enforcement, so it's a little bit different rate. The insurance, we kept the same, but we worked on the benefit section. So now there's a little bit better benefit for the employee, but we kept that at $10,000 per employee per year. And which ends up being about 2.2 million is what we're putting toward health insurance and life insurance and the different incentives there, total. That's really the only big thing. We did have a big increase in our workman's comp, in our property and liability insurance. Normally, it's usually runs about 2%. I think this year it was like 15%. That's also included in the budget. So what I've prepared for you in this budget is a balanced budget with no tax increase in it currently. But if you wanted to add any of these other ones, you know, that's how much it would take roughly. You know, if you want to add all of them, it's 10 cents. But, or if you wanted to go and do whatever. So I guess that's the dialogue you have to have for one, if these are the other things that were left out. So then we can work through that process if you'd like to. Or, you know, we'll go through the budget and see what's in there, that's fine too. Or you can take it home or whatever. The biggest thing, let's see. What you're going to notice over last year, recreation is significantly higher, but that's because we do have some capital in there. We do have the slide, the laser rivers in there. The we had put in 120,000. We've got one playground that we're gonna have to totally take out and reestablish. It's in pretty rough shape, and that's, so we're gonna try to do that. We're also looking at, pickleball court and a couple other things. That was all taken from the settlement funding. So right now, we've got a fund balance in there and just reallocated some of that for that purpose. But that's the only thing that money's going for, the 120,000 for that. But it's your pleasure, whatever you want to do. If you want to go through this individually, and I can walk through the budget ordinance. The first part under A is anticipated expenditures, and these correlate back to the spreadsheets in the back. And then you have anticipated revenues, which kind of just is the general fund revenues only. This does not take into consideration entitlement programs, Medicaid, health department expenditures. Those are in section F. And basically, that's about an $8 million budget turnaround. And that still doesn't include the entitlements, which is about another 8 on top of that. But that's through state resources, so we don't budget that necessarily. And, but anyway, I can go through it individually if you want to, or however you want me to do it. So.
I mean, there's nothing really changed except for, just the buildings in the rec department. And
Correct. There's about 1.1 million total, for that project. And so I just went ahead and allocated all of it. Half of that money is coming from the Part F grant, which is in your revenue section, and the other half is coming from TDA resources, which is also in the revenue section. So not necessarily any money. That's really the only big thing, other than if we have some we might have to come back and amend, depending on when the vehicles come in for the sheriff's office this year, which I did not include because we're anticipating having those in before the end of the year. But if that be the case, that's really the only big thing I left out. If you want me to go through each individual one, I can.
so we'll have another work session in between.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know what you guys think, but maybe just take these home and look at them, study them, and before he goes through them, because if we go through them now, then we're not really familiar with them. So,
That's fine.
I don't know if whatever you guys think.
I guess if there's any questions, then I don't know if anybody has any questions that we discussed or things we want to bring up.
I mean, yeah, we could, I guess we could talk about some of these options if we needed to, or, anything that's in that highlighted up there that we got any questions on.
As far as the options, I mean, the first one is, of course, increase, look at fees, all of our different fees that we have for different programs, and that way the people that are, have to get a building permit, for instance, they're the ones impacted rather than the whole community. So we can definitely look at those. I don't anticipate it increasing a lot. I mean, probably less than 100,000, so it's not a lot of extra
And
funding.
we just done an increase on the inspection,
Yeah.
building inspection fees not too long ago.
Yeah. And then, I guess the difference, so number 2 and number 5 on the options are really the debate, right? So whether you ask for a fire tax or whether you create a public safety service fee is really the question at this point. So you can take those two and debate that if however y'all want to work that.
You guys got any suggestions or comments or questions on that?
Well, the fire tax, it has to be, or needs to be, fire department department oriented. In other words, each district would have to petition the public to see if they want to pay a tax to support their fire departments,
Correct.
okay? And, it just depends, you know, on the mood of the people at that point.
Could we get that explained a little bit better? You mean the Larka district could raise a tax without the
Yes.
West district?
They can. If all of them come in and have a petition, you can say in overall, the whole county, but if just one district comes in, you can say, well, just the Larka community, or just West Swain community, or whatever. Whoever comes in with the petition is the way that works. It's not across the county unless all districts have enough people sign, and it's a petition process. The petition, then the commissioners can put in, you know, it on the ballot, basically, put it on the ballot. Which would be, you know, normally, that's really the way it's supposed to be done.
By the general statute,
The
it's
service
supposed to be
tax
done that
is
way.
kind of ancillary for that, or secondary, because that was put in place because the communities couldn't get a fire tax put in place. And so there was so much turmoil, that's why the state said, yo, you can put in a service fee tax, if that be the case. But traditionally, it's been started from the local folks as a fire tax first, and then if it fails, then the board still has a reasonable way of doing it if they choose to do so. So that's kind of the way it rolls out. But at each individual district, it would be going by district, unless all of them put in, and you can just say across the board tax. But there's so many stipulations with it, and we'll have to get, when we get into this, we'll have to get, you know, the attorney involved and that sort of thing. But the way it works is they give you a leniency, like from 0 to 5 cents per se, and that's what you put on the ballot, you know, and it's still up to the board what the amount goes to, because you might have one district, because it goes off the value of your property, so you might have this district over here at, like, say, 400 million in value, and this one over here at 200 million. Well, you may want them to all be the same as far as what kind of money's coming in, so this tax over here may be 4 cents, and this tax over here may be only 2 cents, because the values are so different. So there's a lot of things to think about when you start that. But it's also the most accepted, because if you think about it, you're taking care of the homes in that district with that much value. So you might want to say, here's, you know, 2 cents on that much value, and it's going back to the fire departments. And so it's really a direct reflection of the actual homes you're guarding, or the homes that you're protecting. So that's why it's called a fire tax, because it goes back to the actual value of the homes you're protecting.
And the public has a say-so
Correct.
as to whether or not they want to support that or not support that.
The only thing that's going to be kind of a hiccup is the rescue part of that situation, because there is no rescue tax. So that would be a service tax. If this other went in place, then y'all would have to consider, you know, how are you going to handle that? So.
How does everybody feel about putting it on a ballot for May?
If the people bring it to me, and I'll vote to put it on the ballot, but the people need to bring it to me. And as far as the other taxes, I'm not willing to raise taxes unless we have public hearings and stuff and here in the communities with the service tax or any of it. I mean, the fees, and I know we just increased some fees. The fees, the people you heard is the people who ain't got the money to pay the extra fees to begin with. People with a lot of money can pay any of the fees. They're building everywhere that they can build. The people who want to build, we don't want to hinder people with fees. And But the other taxes, I'd much rather the people, I wanna hear it from the people.
I like the idea of that being a grassroots and putting it on if that's everybody's wishes in May.
But they definitely need to do it in a timely manner also, wouldn't they? To get it on the ballot, it has to be
You
so
have to-
many.
Yeah, there's a
90
deadline on that
90
somewhere.
90 days before the
Yeah.
election.
Mr. Chairman, I think if we divide this up in districts, and one district can raise taxes higher than the other one, people would get real upset. You know, for our district,
And they could, yeah.
Yeah, it would
cause a
still be
big
up to y'all
problem.
though. It would still be up to this board, what you raised it to.
We could adjust it.
Yeah.
right? But it has to be within that parameters.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, the fire tax is all over the place, even if you look at, counties around us, some taxes are like one, but it's, overall, they're bringing in about the same amount of money, if you look at their budget.
That's more
But
or
I
less
agree with
because
you.
the property values are different.
Yeah, because you may have
In the
more
different
density,
areas.
more homes in one area than you do another, which is gonna bring up the values.
Yeah.
In other words, you still have to compare apples to oranges sometimes.
Yeah.
With that.
I don't mind putting it back to the people, back to the districts or whatever. I think there's some things in government that we're put in here to make decisions. But then there's also some things that we do need to poll the people, but I don't think you poll the people on everything because you'd have 50 million different opinions. But there's certain things that, this is kind of a different animal because there's nonprofit entities that, really we don't have any control over. It's not county funded. We do put monies into it, but it's not like we're funding the whole department. So, I think it probably would be like a community thing, if that makes sense.
The other thing too, from that standpoint, if you're gonna do that and get public input, is maybe putting in some additional funding for capital or something else, maybe out of the settlement funding, settlement money. And, that way you can show the public that you are trying to lower those insurance rates, because, there's multiple ways you can lower insurance rates, and that one is the equipment, making sure you got the right equipment, the location, maybe somebody needs a substation somewhere. If you give them the resources to do some of those things, then that's gonna also bring down that insurance rating as well, maybe beforehand. So, with that said, there is we do have a pretty good balance in like the settlement funding that we could put resources toward the fire departments. That's not gonna hurt us financially. And, then, some of those assets can be labeled as, being sponsored and funded totally by, the settlement funding, so that may be a kind of a give and take. And then, because I don't think anybody's not for the fire departments, but at the same time, I think you're doing your due diligence as a board and as a county, working through the problem, working through the process. And I think that's what I've heard from a lot of different people, that, there's nowhere online that they were asking for like volunteers and that sort of thing. And so it may be through this process that, y'all can explore more and kind of dive into the problem itself.
Mr. Chair, well, I know there's lots more issues to the whole fireman stuff than people even think about. And lots of people moving here don't understand none of it. They expect it to be paid for. They think but even if you have it paid for, logistics of places in this county is a problem. You ain't going to the end of Fontaine Lake Estates in a timely fashion, even if you're at the fire station. You're not going from West Swain to Silver Mine in the gorge and stuff in timely fashions. You're not doing it because logistics is, and those are in the district. There's a 6 mile radius. But 6 miles, it sounds reasonable, but
It's as the crow flies.
right. There was
But it may take 30 miles to get in that 6 mile.
there's a fire on Stevenson Branch.
I know.
Takes a long time to get there. I went down there. It takes a while to get there, and then somebody from a development called We went and took the truck up the steep mountain road. They just saw flames, but they're so happy to see us and stuff, but if we had been at the station, it still would have took a long time to get there, even if you have men there. But people need to understand that.
It does.
And they need to understand they can't demand unrealistic things. But there's a whole lot to learn about it, and I'm trying to learn.
You want me to
There's
bring
really
back some
more,
information on that?
sir.
I was just gonna say, if you want me to bring back information on the fire tax thing?
Give us like a, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 step, just so we'll know where we're at, and what, like a flow chart of how that would work. That would be good.
The communities need to know how to get it done.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
We
And if-
need to know
yeah.
how, if somebody needs to know how to explain it to them to get out in their
Yeah,
communities.
if I don't know how to get it
And
done,
get
I
this
know they ain't
petition, they gotta get this petition circulated, and it has to have a certain number of signatures, I think, in order to do that, so. It's, they may not know exactly the process, but that's what we need, is the process.
I think we spoke to a little bit about the inspection fees. Where do we stand with inspection fees as far as surrounding communities or surrounding counties, I guess I should say? How do we stand in comparison to those? And I know we're not other counties, but I'm just trying to get a gauge of where we stand.
We're kind of in the middle. We're doing another analysis right now because it changes, from time to time. We're not the highest, we're also not the lowest, so we're kind of in the middle on most all of them. There are some counties that have went with this inflation going up. It's just like they've been charging a lot more. Like, one county next to us that charged almost double what we do for almost every permit. I'm not saying do that, but, we do need to at least be in the ballpark. And I think we are in the ballpark. It's just.
I think the last one we done, when we hadn't done it in 20 years, in building inspections. Hadn't really raised the fees, and we done it a year, two years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that put us back in that medium category.
Right. And like EMS fees, we always charge the Medicaid rate because that's just the normal process you do. But I think next year we'll have to go up a little bit higher because of inflation. I mean, those rates go up, continually go up. You have to reset those. We don't arbitrarily just do it. So the board would have to set those again. That won't be until probably next year.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
On number 6, when would be a time to ask school to do, about the impact aid? When would be a opportune time to do that? Was that something you were thinking of doing soon?
I was thinking, in all honesty, just doing it, next year, throughout the next year, and maybe meet with them quarterly, even if it's not the full boards, maybe just their finance folks and administrative folks, and maybe the chair and vice chair of each board or something get together and talk about it, and really kind of dive into it, because, I mean, you see this, one budget here that they produced. I guess my question is underneath the program, like the 0800, which is part of their budget, it says other local, and it's 1.7 million. I don't know what, that is. And so I think if we all sat down together and kind of talked about it, and kind of got some answers, moving forward, because I've said this to a few of y'all, I think, in my mind, impact aid is similar to, well, it is local. It should be local resources, because you're paying for impacted kids, that are on Native American or the boundary that come to our school system. So that money is technically the current expense for those kids that are impacted. And so, because we don't get taxes off the reservation, right? So I mean, so they either take it off the ADM and then do the comparison. But if you notice, if you look at the state numbers, like school appropriation, we're very low. But it's because they don't count that. They don't take off the ADM and then divide it out by the current expense we put in and the capital we put in. And so it makes us look like we're not putting enough toward the school, but in all actuality, if you take those out or if you added the money back into it, we're actually way up there statistically. So I think that's one of the biggest, things we need to really dive into and see and kind of bring this to light, because we've heard different stories over the years, and I think I've shared it with a bunch of y'all, what impact aid is, how much you can use. But I think that the last meeting we had, one of the last questions I asked was about impact aid, and what I got out of it was they can use it for anything they want. And I think that was said at the meeting. And so before, we really look at the request of the additional 804, it'd be good to see exactly where we're at with all of it. And in that way, you kind of know, the other side of the coin, I guess, is what you'd say. And so that would be my recommendation. We did increase up to $1 million on current expense. So they did get an increase, but it's just not what they wanted, just because there's just not enough resources for that. And then the final one is, of course, the personnel committee requested the $2 an hour plus the salary study. What's in the budget is the $1 per hour with the salary study also. The salary study will be done through Archer for the first 6 months. And the way I'm looking at it, right now without an increase, we couldn't do the extra $1 anyway, but also we don't have the parameters of the guidelines. And so this study is going to show us that guideline. Right now, there's no really effort, or I guess cognitive effort, on knowing exactly where people should be on the scale without that study, because that study last was done in 1993. So that's 30 years. And so we really need an updated study to just see. It costs $25,000 for the study, and that's how much it would cost. But I think you're going to get a better product, and then you can actually see. From the standpoint of COLA, $1 an hour is $2,080 per employee. Last year we gave $3,500. So between the two of them, over a 2-year period, that's $2.75 per hour, which I think is pretty good from a COLA standpoint, because I think for the last 10 years we've gotten $500, at the most. So if you look at all of that combined, I think that right now it's the best you can do, unless you want to do some sort of an increase in taxes. Not to say we don't need an increase at some point. This is right now we do have several things that we really need more education on, and I guess that's what you say, more discovery. Looking into it and trying to figure out, especially with the fire and the school and even the COLA, we don't know. We need an accurate study where we know what we're looking at. And I guess that's where I come from. And the COLA is, I know it's not what the personnel committee wanted, but it is within the budget parameters. And it is significant compared to the other times we've done over the term. And we'll just kind of go from there. But whatever y'all want to do, that's why I put down options, so y'all can choose to do something different or just,
So when do we have to know what we're gonna do?
We can have another budget meeting in May, and then after that, y'all can, we can have a 10-day public period after that. I'll be ready. We can have one more, and you can tweak it, take these home, look at them. If you have questions, call me, or we can get back together. And then we'll have another meeting. We could just schedule the same day as like a work session or a regular session and go through it, and then give me some last minute direction, and then I will present a balanced budget to you and give you the budget message and put it on the 10-day public notice, and then y'all can vote on it in June. So my job is to get you a balanced budget by June the 1st, by the way. So we got some time.
Do we, what do you think about that, just having another budget meeting in May and
Yeah.
that'd be our final budget meeting, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, the budget would be balanced at this $1 per hour raise
It's already balanced right now.
right here,
Yeah.
even with the,
With the $1, but not with the $2, which is what they asked for. But with the one in the blue is already up here. Is already in there.
and that's across the board, everybody at all.
Yeah. It didn't do, and that's one thing Kenneth had mentioned about the raising the minimum wage to 15, I think was another part of it. There's really not a good way to do that if you think about it, because the people that are currently making 15 or will be making 15 after the $1, if you move up the lower people to that, then these folks are gonna be left out because they'll say, well, I should deserve a little bit more than that one, you know, that sort of thing. So that's why the scale is important to actually at least identify the scale and through the process. And I think if we have that as a goal for next year, to make that a priority on the 15, and then an implementation of the scale, if it's affordable, then that's what we probably should work for. But then at least we'll know, you know, that right now we have no knowledge, we have nothing tangible to show you. So, until we go through this process, so.
Did we ever get the list of how many people was under $15 an hour?
Yeah, it was 10. 10 of them. And I think it'll only end up being about $1 once you do this. If you do put this one in place, it'll be around $1. So.
There's no way to raise some of the bottom ones up and do increments. Because there's some of the top ones don't need.
Well, I'm not talking about the top ones. I'm talking about, you know, like right now, if you have people making 15, or, yeah, 15, are gonna be making 15.
Well,
and then you
I'm
move
talking
up.
about the whole dollar across the board that's in this budget.
Right. You can do what you want to. Normally, we've just did across the board. It's easier, and most counties do percentages, which is, you know, normally is, well, we've kind of shot away from that. But,
Yeah, we shied away from it because the ones at the top were getting more than the ones at the bottom.
yeah. But this way, it's, I guess, more fair from the standpoint of inflation hits everybody. I know it's different levels, but it's hard to segment what's high and what's low. And it's normally, COLA is just that, cost of living adjustment, meaning inflationary. Normally, it's been at 1.65%, and I think now it's 8.4. I think was the last one I read. So,
You know, if you've got an old truck, you fix what's tore up on it the worst. Seems like a lot of people on the top they're making 3 times and 2 times more than this bottom end. It looks like we might could not give the top earners a raise and boost these people at the very bottom a little extra. I know a lot of them works hard, live paycheck to paycheck, you know. From what I've seen, there's a lot of people that makes a lot of money, and then there's a lot of people that don't make a whole lot. I don't like the across the board because just what I've looked at, honestly, I worked my butt off all year running a business, and I don't make that kind of money when it's said and done. And I'd like to see the people at the bottom of the pile have a little better raise, and I see what you're saying. If you give them a raise and get them close to the other people, then the other people, it's gonna, human nature. but it would be good to work out a deal to where we could see the least get a little more, and the ones in the middle still stay a little ahead. You know?
I think you're kind of talking about two different things, and one of them's cost of living is the COLA. And that to me is cost more because the cost of living does affect everybody. Whether you make $50,000 or $10,000, it affects you the same way somehow. It's just, it don't make sense, but it does. But then there's a raise. That's getting people up to where they need to be. That's different. Does that make sense? COLA's something that everybody does, everybody gets, and then there's a salary adjustment, I guess you would say, to get people up to that. So to me, it would be different than COLA. Is that right? Is that kind of what I'm saying? But I don't know how you look at that. I mean,
I don't believe inflation would bother a man making 50,000 as bad as it did one making 30.
if you're in debt, the same as the one that makes 30, it is.
Well, it would be the same, but the one down there at the bottom, he's hurting worse before the inflation ever started. It's just something to look at.
But this was brought to us not just as COLA, it was brought to us as
Right,
everything.
yeah.
Right.
Because that's what it's brought to
Because
us as.
that's what I'm saying, there's a COLA increase and then there's a salary increase. And I think we've matched them somehow or something maybe over the years. And
Well, the scale is just, it's a scale with a bunch of numbers on it. And that's how we keep everybody or keep positions in the same line, where it don't get skewed. And in all honesty, when I was hired, it was whatever the board wanted to give you. And if they looked at you, I mean, if you were popular, you got whatever you wanted. And if you wasn't, I mean, my assistant, when I first was hired, made $10,000 more than I did. And she worked for me. I mean, that's how skewed it was. And so, I mean, I think at the end of the day, we try to do what's right based on the scale. And there's different levels of stress. And I look at the stress level, you know, usually the people that are making higher, they have, you know, they don't get off. So if you really think about it on a per hour rate, you might as well just, they may be making $10 an hour for all we know. With the amount of stress that you take home with you, that you're on call 24/7, that, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff happening with the people that do make the big bucks. The ones that are at the middle, they don't necessarily take the stress home as much. The one on the lower end probably don't take any stress home. They leave it there. It's just there. So you got to look at it from that perspective and not just saying, you know, and I understand what you're saying, you know, if you look at it, but at the end of the day, that's why they make the more money, is because you're never off.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
I
from
understand
that
that.
perspective.
I understand that to an extent, but there's a big difference in some of the pays. I mean, I thought the whole thing was to get the bottom, that's how it's presented. I thought it was to get the bottom ones up a little more.
And we can do that. We can look at it. It's just what.
I think we just need to look at it
It's what number.
as
What
a separate,
number.
separate thing, you know what I'm saying? The COLA affects everybody. The wage adjustment might be something that we look at,
Right.
get the bottom end up. So.
Mr. Chair, I kind of looked at it, we implemented those step plans and the ideas of trying to get people to stay with us in longevity. So if you looked and you'd say, okay, I'll get this much of a bump in a year or 2 years and 5 years, so on. So that promoted us being able to maintain people. And so hopefully people look at that and say, if I stay here, if I stay with the sheriff's department, I stay with whatever department we have, will be another year, I'll get to this step and so on. So hopefully that encourages people to stay with us. You know, that promise of making more money, the more time you have with us. And so that was my thought about why we implemented some of the step plans and so on, to encourage that.
Yeah. See, ideally, the way the step plan works, if you moved up the whole scale, like say you set a rate of 15, and that's your minimum. So that whole scale, starting with the lowest salary would be 15 right there. And then each one of those numbers on the left-hand side are 5% apart, right? And then each one in between is 5%. That's just the way the scales operate. Just like the state scale or federal scale or anything, when you're like a G2 or whatever they call it in the federal level, it's the same difference, it's the same type of scale. And that's just a standardized approach. But if you set this one at 15, the whole scale moves, right? Because it's across the board. And that's why it doesn't separate, it still separates those people. So if one of them, and let's just say we hire everybody at step 2 and they got 0 years of service, which we do. You got, grades 56 through 90, right? And then if this is 15, it's always going to be 5% apart all the way down through there. And that's just how that runs. But you have to move the entire thing, because if you just do this in 15, well, now that 15 now is going to be, it may be this one that was supposed to be 15 is now 15 as well. So you're going to have 2 of them side by side, so they might as well just move that one up 1 grade. But then you look at it, there's somebody in accounting making the same thing as a custodian. Everybody's got different skill sets, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I think you pay for that skill set.
What's the minimum wage right now? And
$7.25. That's the federal. It's $7.25. And we have, I'd say the majority of our folks are above 13. So we can come back. Throughout the year we've done different things. We've done percentages, but no less than the minimum salary. So like if you do a percentage, and that's how you increase that bottom scale up. We can look at doing something like that. The biggest thing is just to be consistent with people. Be as fair as possible when you're looking at it. And if we're, what differentiates the lower folks than the one making higher. The only other thing I suggest is see about this salary study and see what happens with that. And then once we get that back, which will be in December, then maybe we can make an adjustment for moving it to the 15, as far as the actual salary piece instead of the COLA. But we'll run a number any way y'all want us to.
I'd run it just so it looks like, So the salary study, that's just gonna give us information. It's really not gonna tell us what we should do.
It'll give you the information based on counties of similar size, similar geographic location, similar job types. People will have to go through the process. Every county employee will have to fill out the form on what they actually do. And then that's correlated back, and then y'all make a decision on if you want to implement or how we're going to implement it. What I've seen, but this is all just seen, is we're probably about between 20 and 30% off most positions, almost every position, from the bottom all the way to the top, on what they're off. And like I said, all that's subjective, but that's why I say we need somebody a third party that can just tell us that number,
Could we not just go over to Clay County and tell them to give us a print out of their employees and what they pay them and what they make, and save the $25,000?
It'd be nice. Actually, that's considered intellectual property.
Really?
And whoever did the study, like Gallagher or Archer, they can actually come back and sue you. Sue whoever. So you have to sign like a little. So we actually tried that. We actually said, can we get a copy? And then
the problem with the county is, I just know our county. I don't know everybody else's county, but I do know some of the stuff. It's like where we have one person here that does 5 jobs, that same person's doing 1 job somewhere else. So like, I'll just tell you building inspections, because I know this because I worked there. You do building, plumbing, mechanical, electrical, And then you also got fire, and you also got erosion control, which we do not have now, and you also got floodplain. If you go to another county like Macon County, all those are all individual jobs. They're not all grouped all into one. And so that's where that salary study's gonna tell us where we're actually at.
Yeah, but that's comparing apples to oranges also. They got a whole lot bigger tax base, they got a whole lot bigger population, and that hurts us.
Yeah,
We only have so much revenue,
but that's the problem. We don't have the revenue.
but we ain't never had a whole lot of jobs.
Right.
And the other, and I'm just basing off the private sector compared to government sector, and it's a lot different. And I hear all the time, well, Bojangles hires at $14 an hour. Yeah, they might. They don't have insurance or retirement. They don't have any of that. And if you count that stuff, insurance is what, 10,000 an employee. Retirement adds up to a whole lot, especially if you retire, then you're drawing a check.
Yeah.
But that's part of it also that we seem to not look at.
Anybody else got anything to talk about it? I think we just maybe look at all this and then come back and do another in May and kind of go through the budget then. If that's all right, you guys.
I do have one question. How many county employees do we have now?
192 full-time, and then we've got several part-time.
It's part-time counting
Counting
the
lifeguards.
contract people that we got.
Yeah,
You
I'm
don't know
thinking
how-
it's around 230 total. But that also includes, you know, like all the part-time paramedics we have on staff. But they're not considered full-time.
Anyone got anything else?
We need to set a date, I guess, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
If we're gonna do that in May, I was looking, I think our meetings, well, let me find it again. Our meetings in May, the 2nd, the 16th, is that right?
Yeah. May the 2nd be the work session and, you gonna do it again before the work session?
Either work session or regular session one,
Either one,
whichever y'all want to do.
then when will we vote on the budget? The June,
Last year, we voted in May. You would just have to, once you finalize it, then you got to put it out for 10 days public notice, and then you can have a meeting and vote on it. So you could do, and I've got to have it to you by June 1st. So I will be presenting either way before June 1st. So we can, you can have a meeting on the 6th. After the work session, you can call a special budget meeting if you'd like to, on the 6th of June for a vote. And then we can, after we tweak it on the 16th or the 2nd, I can present it on the 16th of May, and then y'all can have a meeting on the 6th of June to approve it or vote on it. So,
gotcha. So we'll do like at 3 o'clock on the 16th?
yeah, that's fine. Or,
Yeah.
or 4. It depends on how, it's like we're running ahead of time
Okay.
this time, so.
3 o'clock on the 16th, that work? 3 o'clock on the 16th, and that's right before a regular session. And then on the 6th, we can, that's when we will vote. Yeah, okay. And we'll do that at a special session.
Yep.
Before
You can do it
or after?
After
We
the-
do it after, because that's a morning session. We do, yeah, we do that after.
Let me say that to me one more time. We're gonna have the budget meeting at 3 o'clock on the 16th, and that's the day of the meeting at 5:30, so 3 o'clock. And then
3 and 5:30.
5:30 on the 16th, and then that would be our final budget
We tweak it,
meeting.
yep.
And then we would meet again, has to be presented by June 1st, but we don't have to vote in.
I will present it to you before then. I mean, it'll be on the 16th, I'll have it ready. I mean, we'll get it tweaked up on that, and I'll have it ready by the meeting. I'll present it on the 16th either way, balanced.
And then we'll come
Sure.
back on the 6th, and we'll have that morning, we'll have a special session.
Well, that would be our normally scheduled work session at 10:30 on that day,
Yeah.
and just,
After that session, we'll go into another session. After our regular work session, we just go into another session for the hearing for the budget.
And in the meantime, I'll be getting all the stuff on the fire deal and any other information.
And if that's good with everybody, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Passed unanimously.